The Indian judiciary is specifically created such that there is as much judicial independence as possible. The Indian judiciary is an integrated judiciary with the Supreme Court at its head. All the courts of the country are subordinate to the Supreme Court. There is no judicial or quasi-judicial body that would not come under the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. Article 124 of the Constitution gives for the establishment of the Supreme Court with a Chief Justice of India and a maximum of 30 more judges, making the strength of the Supreme Court as 31. The President appoints judges in consultation with the Chief Justice of India. As things stand, the President is given recommendations on the appointments of the judges to Supreme Court by a collegium of 5 senior-most judges of the Supreme Court. The President can accept the recommendation and appoint such person, or the President can return such recommendation for further discussion. If the collegium sends back the same recommendation, then the President is bound to accept such and appoint such a person as a Supreme Court judge. This law was settled in re presidential reference. In order to be appointed as a judge of the Supreme Court, a person must be a citizen of India and must have been for at least 5 years a judge of a high court of 2 or more such courts in succession, or an advocate of a high court or of 2 or more courts of such succession for at least 10 years, or a person must be, in the opinion of the President, a distinguished jurist. The Supreme Court judges retire upon attaining the age of 65 years. According to Article 124, Clause 4 of the Constitution, a judge of the Supreme Court cannot be removed from his office except by an order of the President, passed after an address by each House of the Parliament, supported by a majority of total membership of that House and by a majority of not less than 2/3 of the members of that House present and voting, has been presented to the President in the same session for such removal on grounds of proved misbehavior or incapacity. Article 129 of the Constitution provides that the Supreme Court shall be a court of record. This means that, amongst other things, the Supreme Court has the power to punish for its own contempt. Article 131 gives for the original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, which means such cases that are directly instituted in the Supreme Court and do not reach the Supreme Court as a result of appeals. The Supreme Court has original jurisdiction over disputes that occur when both the parties are the central government and various state governments, or any such combination. Articles 132 to 134 give for appellate jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, which means it gives the Supreme Court the right to hear cases that are in appeal from the High Court or any other court as the law specifies. Article 143 gives the President the right to consult the Supreme Court regarding a question of law that has arisen or is likely to arise. The Supreme Court may advise the President. However, giving such an advice is not mandated on the court. At the same time, the President is not obligated to heed the advice that the Supreme Court has given. This is the advisory jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. Article 136 confers a wide jurisdiction to the Supreme Court to entertain appeals in suitable cases not otherwise provided for by the Constitution. Article 141 of the Constitution says that the law declared by the Supreme Court shall be binding on all courts within the territory of India. This means that a legal principle, interpretation of a statute, or validity of a law settled by the Supreme Court is binding on all courts of India. Judicial review. Founded on the doctrine of separation of powers, judicial review is actually the interpretation of laws passed by the government, and in cases where they are ambiguous, the courts shall also have the power to correct them or to strike them down if they find such a law contrary to Part 3 of the Constitution or ultra vires the Constitution through an issuance of writ by the Supreme Court or High Court to protect the fundamental rights. In the 1970s and 1980s, public interest litigation was popularized by the Supreme Court judges, mainly by the then Chief Justice of India, Justice P.N. Bhagwati. In order to serve the interests of justice and larger welfare, in some cases, legal formalities were kept aside and postcards, letters, and even telegrams to the Supreme Court or High Courts have been treated as public interest writ petitions and followed by the Supreme Court or High Court. Normally, an aggrieved individual whose individual right has been violated can file a PIL. Article 214 of the Constitution gives that there shall be a High Court for each state. This does not mean that each state shall have a separate High Court. There are 29 states and 7 union territories in the country. However, there are only 25 High Courts in India. Various states share a High Court, and in union territories, only Delhi has a High Court. The rest of them share High Courts with adjacent states. For example, Bombay High Court holds jurisdiction over Maharashtra, Goa, Dadra and Nagar Haveli and Daman and Diu. And Kolkata High Court holds jurisdiction over West Bengal and the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. The appointment of a judge to the High Court and transfer of judges between High Courts follow the exact same procedure of the appointment of judges in the Supreme Court. A person to be eligible as the High Court judge should be a citizen of India and for at least 10 years hold a judicial office in India, or for at least 10 years be an advocate of one or more High Courts. According to Article 215, High Courts are also courts of record. Article 227 provides that High Courts shall have superintendence over all courts and tribunals throughout the territory that come under the High Court's jurisdiction. A judgment of a High Court is binding on all courts within the territorial jurisdiction of that court. However, it is not binding on another High Court or any other subordinate court which is not within its jurisdiction.